everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Bottom Line. I'm your host, Lauren Kalil. Our show is brought to you by Vuori. If you want a brand that feels as good as it looks, this is for you. Their performance joggers are as silky smooth as butter, and once you have one pair, you're going to want them in every color. Make sure to check out our description below for 20% off of your first purchase. On today's episode, we have Australian CrossFit Games athlete Royce Dunne, who missed qualifying this year by just one spot, was then asked to be on the CrossFit Games demo team, but then announced that he, in fact, would not be able to participate. Royce, this season, it has been full of emotions for you, I'm sure. There's so much to dive into, but let's kind of go back a bit and start with last year. You won the Torian Pro, finished 16th overall at the CrossFit Games, and you were even crowned the fittest man in Australia. Fast forward to this year, a different outcome. What have some of those emotions been like, especially coming out of semifinals and ultimately not qualifying?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster of a year, and it's always the specter that you have to deal with as an athlete that last year doesn't help you at all. You know, the points don't carry over. It's a new year, and the other boys in this region are super fit and super competitive, and hopefully we get to see that this year at the games. And so it's a bit of a pressure cooker down here with only three spots and so much talent. I mean, even more so on the women's side. So it is like, you're going into semifinals and it's basically like as much, if not more stress in the games to make one of those spots. And so you just, nothing's in the bag. You know, last year, as I said, doesn't help at all. So it really is, you got to show up on the day and put your best foot forward.
You're not the first athlete to say that semifinals are more stressful than the games, especially in Oceania with only 3 spots on the line. I think especially on the men's field, it was interesting this year because Ricky Garrard came back into the mix. So we know, or now we know at least, that there are at least 4 men on the Oceania side that have been to the CrossFit Games that are deserving of those game spots. Knowing that he was kind of back into the mix and that there potentially were 4 deserving people with only 3 spots, how did that add into your mindset heading into semifinals, or didn't it at all?
If I'm being 100% honest, it definitely played into it. I knew that Ricky was a great competitor, and yeah, as you say, it's just one more person in a full region that has the potential. So that definitely plays into your mind. As a competitor, you have to put it out of your mind and just go in with the mindset that it doesn't matter who's there. You have to get that spot. It's the same on the girls' side, and I don't envy them as well with Tia essentially guaranteed a spot. But
Mhm.
Tia wasn't born that way. She worked hard to be someone who you could bet on take a spot, and so you kind of can't just say, well, you couldn't argue we should have one more spot just because Tia's there, because there's nothing special about Tia except what she does, like her hard work. So you just have to compete with who's there, and if you deserve the spot, you deserve it. With the one caveat being, I don't envy CrossFit at all with the job of deciding where these spots go in each region, and
Mhm.
anyone could make an argument for any region needing more spots, but um, as I do know our semi-final director Mike pretty personally, and I've not that he would ever um, show me any workouts or anything like that, but we often have discussions post the event on just I guess the behind the scenes logistics that most people wouldn't get to understand or talk about. And it is this huge pressure on them to program an event that is rounded enough to send the best athletes to the games. The limitation is that in 6 events in 3 days, you can never have the most complete test that you could in 11 to 15 events over a week at the CrossFit Games, right? Like, no one's debating that. Everyone knows that winning the semi-final is not the same as winning the games. I mean, Justin came third in his semi-final last year and then won the CrossFit
Yeah.
Games. So no one would make that. It's a correlation. It's not a causation, right? Like, so the semi-finals are not meant to be the ultimate test. It's just one of the stepping stones. But the problem is that because it's not completely a perfect test, the difference between a fourth and a third, or in the States, between a fifth and a sixth, could come down to a workout here or a workout there, or if this movement was different, or whatever. And so how do you deal with that problem? You can't necessarily add more events into this weekend, but in my opinion, the way to deal with that would be to widen the net slightly. So if there was 5 spots in Oceania, which I know is everyone said this to death, and I am biased, but if there was 5 spots in Oceania, it allows for a bit more play in the order of events, in the kinds of events, in the movements in the event. If you swapped out a handstand push up for a handstand walk, what does that do to standings? And if you widen the net a little bit, it means that those variables aren't as critical, and then more people get to go to the games and truly decide their ranking over 11 events that are way more comprehensive, because that's the nature of it. So that's just what it is. When the net is smaller, like there's only 3 spots in a competitive region, it just, so many more variables matter that necessarily shouldn't necessarily matter.
Sure. And I think there's so many different directions we can go in with just that conversation with programming. Should it be standardized across the board? Then potentially even adding spots for Oceania next year, which we'll have you on another episode of The Bottom Line to talk more about that. But staying in the vein of what exactly is going on with you, let's go to after semifinals. So you head to last chance qualifier. Ultimately, we're not able to punch your games ticket through that. I imagine that you assumed your season was done. But then CrossFit, they reached out
Yes.
to you and wanted you on their demo team. What were some of the ups and downs during that time? What was going through your head?
At first, it was just joy. It was very flattering, a huge honor. The fact that like not couldn't be the easiest task to bring someone from Australia over to the games for the demo team when there's a plethora of the US athletes. So it was very yeah, it was a huge honor that they thought that I was worthy of that, and would be a good demonstration, literally, of the sport, of the movement. So yeah, it was a huge honor. It's one of those things. The best way I can describe it is it's like a life, once in a lifetime experience, similar to competing at the games. That most people would, you wouldn't choose it, right? If you could choose to compete or demo, you would choose to compete. So it's one of those things that you almost would never get to do unless you failed at your goal first. And so even though it's like technically a consolation prize, it's uniquely and like such an amazing experience that most people don't get to do, because you wouldn't even be aiming for it in the first place. So it's quite it would be quite an amazing thing to tick off your list, because the situation at which you would be qualified for it is so unique, and so many factors have to come together for it to happen, that it's almost harder to do than making the games, and yet
Yeah.
you wouldn't try to choose it. So it was a very serendipitous and like amazing turn of fate, I thought.
So when you didn't qualify through the last chance qualifier, did any little spark come into your mind and you thought, I would love to do the demo team. I wonder if CrossFit will reach out to me. Or was it a complete shock when ultimately they did reach out to you?
I did think it would be something cool to do, and it was definitely in my mind, but it was still a big shock when they reached out. I definitely didn't think that I deserved it, if that makes sense.
So then when did they reach out to you? And ultimately, when did you agree to be part of the demo team?
I'm not sure the exact date now. It was a couple of weeks ago. It was about a month out, so it must have been early July, I think, quite early in July. Um, and initially, I had said that to I was conversing with Lucas, and I said, "Hey, this would be an honor. I'd love to do it. However, I'm not vaccinated. I don't know if I can travel to the US." And we went back and forth on that for a little bit. I went and consulted with the GP, and pursued what we thought were different options. Call me naive. I thought there were different options. And so I tentatively agreed, and they knew that of the situation. So CrossFit were prepared to have like a backup in place, and some different stipulations we agreed on. So it wasn't a complete shock to them when I couldn't make it, but I tried to not to set them up for failure, obviously, by saying I was going to be there and then having to dog them at the last minute and leaving them, in the lurch. So, however, it obviously still wouldn't have been ideal for them. It would have been the best case for everyone if I could have made it.
Okay, so I have so many questions. I'm going to try to keep my thoughts organized and go in a chronological order. But if I ask things that are all over the place, just bear with me. The viewers, bear
No
with us
worries.
here.
Yeah,
So
easy.
now I do want to pull up your Instagram post that you put announcing that you won't be part of the demo team. In there, you say, unfortunately, I will not be making my way to Madison to participate on the demo team at the games this year. I am unvaccinated for COVID-19, and currently there are no travel exemptions for non US citizens. I had obtained a COVID clearance certificate and a fit to travel certificate, but the US regulations are definitive and I was refused boarding. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah,
Like
I
that
went and
last
saw my
part.
GP. We got a couple of different certificates in order. I went and did got a
Sorry,
PCR test and
GP, your
general
GP.
practitioner.
Okay, got it.
Just
Thank you.
my doctor. I went and saw my physician, and we got a PCR test done. I had COVID in January of this year and
Mhm.
recovered. So we went and got a PCR test and also a blood serology, and it all came back negative, clear, non-contagious, like not even any remnant of the COVID from January. So she did me up a medical certificate saying that I was fit to travel and had recovered and was all clear. And yeah, I guess in hindsight, it was very naive of me to think um, that would be possible because when I actually so I actually turned up to the airport for my flight. I'm trying to check in.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, they've called down like their supervisor and then the supervisor's supervisor. And essentially, if you're a non-US citizen, it just purely comes down to like Homeland Security in the states need the airline to log with them a vaccination international vaccination certificate. Like you need a serial number. That's it. If you don't have that, they don't want to hear about it. So it was definitively no, just absolutely not. You need like the tick. You need the certificate for a vaccination from there's like 7 or 8 vaccinations that they accept, and that's it. If you're a US citizen, there's obviously some wiggle room, some different things,
Mhm.
so on. But if you're a visa holder, there's a list of different exemptions. But if you're not a US citizen, it's vaccination or nothing. And yeah, I didn't realize it was that airtight until I got there. Literally, I was, I guess, naive in that regard. Um, so it was no go. It was, I'm sorry, head home.
But you made it to the CrossFit Games last year. What was different?
Yes. I assume the difference was that the vaccine not being widely available yet. There wasn't any travel mandates around the vaccine. So last year it was the process was applying for an exemption to leave the country here in Australia because Australia had locked down travel
Mhm.
to and from our country. So I applied for an exemption and I got that fairly easily. It was an international sporting trip. I got a letter from CrossFit with an official invite to help out. So I got that exemption very easily. It was display a negative PCR test result at the airport before I left and show a negative one at the airport when I arrive. And that was it.
Interesting. So, was there any time during this whole process that CrossFit was able to help you, or were they very clear that, hey, if you're not vaccinated, there is no workaround to this and you just can't travel to the States?
CrossFit themselves were like reminding me of that. They were when we were first discussing this. They were like, okay, so we've got the CDC guidelines here.
Mhm.
You have to be vaccinated, whatever. Are you sure you can make this work? And I was like, I'll talk to my physician. I'll see if we can find a workaround. I called the airline. And funnily enough, the airline had no requirement on vaccination, but it's one of those things where they have to enforce the rules of the country they're going to. So in the
Ah,
US
okay.
case, they have to
Mhm.
lodge with Homeland Security before they're allowed to land their plane in a foreign country that they have met all the rules. And so CrossFit couldn't really help anything is well out of their realm. It's straight from the CDC. The only way to get an exemption now that I found out would I would have had to contact the CDC direct in the US and get an exemption for some reason. And those kinds of exemptions they're giving only for like an ambassador, or you've been invited to the US under national interest, or if I was a citizen of some kind trapped in a foreign country trying to get home. It's not like an exemption for, oh, you're fit to travel and you're competing in the sport. Yeah, sure, we'll let you in. It's not like that right now. So yeah, the answer was always going to be no. I just didn't know just didn't know that until it was too late.
Okay, sure. So this had nothing to do with timing. And I know with like from semifinals to last chance qualifier to the games, it's such like a short window that CrossFit necessarily wouldn't have had more time to let you know because we didn't know if you were going to the games or not. But even if you had 5 months notice, there's really would have been no way unless you were vaccinated. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So back to the demo team, I'm curious, have you tested any of the workouts from home? Have they given you any hints? Not that I'm asking you to reveal them here or anything.
No,
As
no.
much as I love to break the news, I don't wanna get anybody in trouble.
Yeah. What I know is what everyone knows, which is just
Okay,
that post about the Trek bikes that Games put up. So there's been no correspondence of any of the workouts, no testing done or anything. Our first work day, if you will, was going to be when we arrived, and met up as a team. So there's been no, so because from my understanding, based on what Alison was telling us, our role, the in-person demo team is to we're essentially on call the whole time. You're doing
mhm,
testing of some events in specifically to test the timings and the mechanics of the workout at the Alliant Energy Center or at the Madison venue, which they can't necessarily replicate during the year when they're writing these workouts up. If Boz is testing a
sure,
workout back in July, he can't be at the Coliseum, so he doesn't necessarily know if things will flow exactly how he wants it to. So it's that kind of testing, and then it's actually, ironically, mostly just demoing the flow and the workouts for all for the age groups, for the teams, for the individuals, and being at every briefing and that kind of thing. So, I mean, the workouts are all. I can only assume the workouts are all finalized. There was no like, I'll test these two versions to see which one we'll pick. It was more for the logistics and actual uh, performing the workout in the
sure.
arena and how it will all flow. And
But even, like, you say how it flows, what it's gonna be like in the arena, but a lot of it is also, like, when CrossFit picks their games demo team, just by seeing, like, who's on it each year, they're picking a diverse group because they want different athletes to be able to test different things. You would have been, I'm sure, the strength guy to know, are these tests heavy enough for the athletes, or is nobody on the field going to be able to finish that? So, I'm just curious what your thoughts on the demo team moving forward. You did say that they are going to replace your position. I would assume that they're going to look for somewhat of a strength athlete. I don't know if you have any insight to that.
no, I have no idea who the next athlete waiting in line was. And yeah, that is typically, I guess, the smart way to build the demo team would be, yeah, diverse, different strengths and weaknesses that overlap. I mean, that being said, not everyone tests every workout, so they definitely are also looking for. I mean, for example, based on what James and Calm were saying last year about how they tested the swim and kayak, it was more a case of Dave wanted to see, like, what's the worst case scenario? When do we have to pull them out of the water? Like, when do we have to cap this event? So he had them just basically with no warm up, just jump in and test it. They just went for a swim, grabbed their kayaks, and headed for the
Oh,
far
wow.
side of the lake without even having the cones out. No buoys or buoys in the water. It was just try and find the other side and go. And so their time was obviously a lot slower than most of ours at the games, but it was just to give Dave an idea of, like, okay, at what time is it time to just get these guys out of the water?
Mhm.
It's over.
Sure.
And I don't think he really minded how fast someone could do it. If someone could do it under an hour, or I think Tia got pretty close, then it's like, good on them. I just need to know when someone needs to be, like, rescued. So
Yeah.
there are a
Yeah.
lot of events like that where it's if someone finishes it too quickly, I mean, good on them. There's other events like the yoke one, where the last thing Dave wanted was for someone to break that workout, and once again, Tia and BK nearly did.
Yeah.
Um,
We
So
live
yeah,
for those moments as viewers.
oh yeah, of course, yeah. I remember Elizabeth Akinwale saying that like years ago that her goal was she wanted to like make a workout look too easy. That was like every game she would
Love
try and
that.
find a workout to do that. Yeah, it's an awesome attitude.
So speaking of attitude, obviously this season has been full of so many ups and downs for you, but is there any type of silver lining that you're taking away from this? I know you have a family. I expect that you would have been away from them for at least a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. That's the when my wife came back to pick me up from the airport because hadn't left. My little boy was like, "Oh, well, Dad, I won't have to miss the family now." So
Oh,
yeah,
that probably
it's
melted your heart.
yeah, that was a nice little comfort. So yeah, it's obviously hard leaving family at any time. So yeah, the silver lining, I guess, is that it's just some forced family time now, and yeah, it's hard to swallow, but like I try to keep some perspective. Like there's far more people out there receiving far worse news at any given time than me being told I can't go to America. So um, yeah, my life's not awful. Like it's all right.
So positive through all the adversity. Royce, what is your bottom line to this whole season for you?
The bottom line is, just for me personally, it is about personal choice. Like I chose not to be vaccinated for several reasons, and I don't regret that choice. That's what was best for me, and these are just the unexpected consequences. I say unexpected to me. I guess I was like just didn't do my research enough. And that is a price I'm willing to pay. My only regret is that the inconvenience I may have caused CrossFit. Hopefully not too much, but and letting down the fans, of course. But it's the price I am willing to pay. I wish the rules weren't this. I wish if I got to make the rules, it I would have let myself travel, obviously, but I don't get to make the rules, and so I'm happy to follow those rules based on what's important to me and the choice that I want to make.
Well, Royce, thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with us to give us more perspective and answering a lot of my questions about exactly what's been going on this season. I wish you all of the best. And until next year, maybe we'll see you in Madison then.
Hopefully.